1985. This is the year Nintendo released the NES, marking their debut into the home console market. The same year the NES released, Nintendo released one of the most important and influential games in gaming history, one that introduced the world to Nintendo's iconic gaming mascot. Super Mario Bros. Influence on gaming is hard to comprehend. It created gaming as we know it today, and it also popularized side-scrolling platformers. Prior to Super Mario Bros., it was extremely rare to find a platformer where players could travel across a level. Usually, levels remain stationary, but Super Mario Bros. Executes this concept very well, especially for a game that came out in 1985. In the time the NES released, arcade games were the big thing in gaming. And what is the goal of arcade games? Arcade games throw hard challenges at the player, while the player would focus on getting the highest score possible before running out of lives. If we take Pac-Man for example, the game is just one repeating level where the player has to avoid losing lives while eating pellets and ghosts to increase their score. Super Mario Bros. Incorporates a lot of elements from the arcades into the game. It has a timer, finite lives, and it has a score tally. But the score doesn't really matter. Instead, Super Mario Bros. Shifts its focus from beating high scores to beating levels without getting a game over. Ultimately, the goal is to beat the game without losing all of your lives. This was an important step for console gaming, as games would continue to move away from high scores for many years until any vestiges of arcade design no longer remained. Mario's movement is relatively simple now in modern days, but his movement remains unique to this day thanks to two features: the run button and momentum. Running makes Mario so much speedier compared to his normal speed, and it feels really good when you're trying to beat a level as fast as you can, and you're just flying through it. His momentum is also an important factor in whether you successfully pull off a jump. Unlike the Mario games that succeeded him, you have less control over Mario when he is in the air. So that means it's harder to make him stop once he has already committed to jump right, and it's also harder to move him in any direction if he first jumps straight up. That means there are plenty of times when it is important to get a good running start to make a successful jump. The duration of time you hold the jump button is also important. Quickly pressing it will make Mario jump a shorter height, while holding it longer allows Mario to remain in the air for a longer duration of time. Both short jumps and long jumps are extremely useful, and it is up to the player to decide when it is best to use either kind of jump. What makes the levels so good is how they teach the player to engage with them. Let's look at the first level. The first thing you'll see is an item block and a Goomba. The Goomba teaches the player to jump over it or jump on top of it to avoid losing a life. The item blocks have a rhythmic glow to them, which catches your attention. Jumping up into one of them gets you coins and an item, the mushroom. The mushroom makes Mario bigger and stronger, as now you can smash through brick blocks. It also allows Mario to take a hit, with the consequence being that getting hit once reverts him back to small Mario. The green pipes are also important in teaching the player to jump over obstacles in the level. Up ahead, a gap in the ground teaches the player to jump over the hole to continue the level. The next item block has a fire flower, which grants Mario the ability to throw fireballs, which is really useful for taking out Goombas and Koopas. Further ahead, there are two sets of stairs with a gap between them. Immediately after that, there are the same set of stairs, but now there is a hole in the ground, and failing to make this jump will cost you your life. But you have already been prepared for that moment, thanks to the previous set of stairs. Because of that, you should already have an understanding of how to deal with this kind of jump. And then there's a set of large stairs that lead to the flag, the endpoint of the level. Touching this flag begins a celebratory song, indicating that you have successfully beat the level. There is so much that is taught to the player in just the first level, and as you progress through the game, challenges become harder and harder. You'll come up against tougher enemies like Bullet Bills, the Lakitu, and the notoriously difficult Hammer Bros. The levels also become a lot tougher. The last level doesn't even give you stairs to the flag. You have to make these jumps that make your palms sweat. But even so, it's been preparing you for this moment, whether or not you have realized it. The variety and the theming and design of levels makes the game feel so much bigger than it really is. The first level has a large blue sky with the occasional white cloud in the background. There are green hills far off into the distance, and green bushes, which are literally the exact same acid as the clouds, just colored in green. In the second level, Mario enters a pipe that leads downward into what appears to be a dark cave of some kind. The bricks, tiles, and even Goombas are now blue. The blue on black gives this level a distinct vibe from the first one. And then there are the castle levels, with their oppressive gray and black color palette, combined with the deadly red lava. This is also our first introduction to Bowser, who spits fire at us and is the largest enemy we face in the game. There are also water levels, which provide a unique challenge to the players that have to grasp Mario movement underwater, and learn how to deal with the new underwater enemies. There is also a level that is more puzzle oriented, which asks the players to go through the right paths to progress to the next part of the level. For such an old game, it's honestly insane how much variety there is in the types of levels you'll find in this game. On top of that, it's crazy how something as simple as changing the color of the background to black and changing the color of the ground to gray or blue completely changes the atmosphere of a level. Fundamentally, if you really stripped it all down, most of these levels are similar in their layout, but something about the changes in color just adds a lot of character to the environments, and truly does make the world of Super Mario Bros. Feel much bigger than it really is. It's impossible to talk about Super Mario Bros. Without mentioning its iconic sound. Super Mario Bros. Was one of the first games Nintendo made for the NES, and it is insane to think about how this tiny little game of only 40 kilobytes was able to do so much and have so much influence on the trajectory of gaming as a whole. And with this amazing start, it's now time to see what Nintendo cooked with their sequel. No, not you. No, not you either. Give me the true sequel. Super Mario Bros. 3 is bigger and better in literally every way possible. I mean, just look at these two games side by side. These games were only released 3 years apart from one another, and look at how amazing Mario 3 looks compared to the first one. Something about it doesn't make sense in my head. How are these two games made by the same developer? How are they only 3 years apart? And how the hell are both of these NES games? Super Mario Bros. 3 is so colorful and pretty. Yeah, there's a lot of screen flickering now, and the occasional lag, but I think it's worth it to get a game that is so pretty. I like the blues of the water, the greens of hills and bushes, and the reds of lava. The castle levels have so much more texture and detail. In the first game, our mind and imagination had to fill in a lot of the gaps and interpret the setting we saw. But thanks to the added detail, we now have a clear understanding of the developer's artistic vision and what they're trying to portray. I also like the design of Mario and the enemies. They're all such cutie patooties. I like how Mario's smiling even in the most nightmarish situations. What a Chad. Mario's movement is so much tighter in this game, and I love it. I have so much control over Mario on the ground and in the air. If I fail to jump, it's because I fudged something up, and not because of some weird momentum physics. It's a definite improvement over the first game, and that's why I have so much fun controlling Mario in this game. There are many new additions to Super Mario Bros. 3 that will influence the future of platformers forever. The big new feature was the world map, which allowed players to control Mario and decide what level to play. There are many instances where you'll come to a fork in the road, and you get to decide which level to play. So let's say if you didn't really like stage 6 of this world, you can just go to stage 7 and then progress to the level after that. I love when games give the players some freedom in how they choose to progress. This world map is super important because it breaks up the platforming gameplay by giving players more things to do in the world map as well. Throughout the map, there are many minigames the player can engage with that provide rewards that will help them across their journey. There is one game where successfully lining up an item grants the player extra lives. There is another where the player can open one of 3 chests to earn a random item. And my favorite one is this card minigame, which has you memorizing the placement of items and matching them with other cards. Successfully matching identical cards grants the player the items on the card, but making 2 errors will result in a loss, and you'll have to try again at a later time. Players can also earn items by defeating enemies that litter the map. I love all of this because it's a fun way to reward players, and to give them items and power-ups that can be extremely useful in their playthrough. In the world map, players can press the B button to bring up all the items and power-ups they have earned, and use any of them at any given time to help them with a level or with an obstacle on the world map. The Mushroom, Star, and Fireflower power-ups return, but the new additions include the Super Leaf, which turns Mario into a raccoon and gives him the ability to float and swipe at enemies in close range. If players fill up their P meter by sprinting and reaching enough speed, Mario can even fly for a brief duration of time while the P meter is full, which allows the player to access many secrets in hidden areas. The rare power-ups are the Hammer Suit and the Frog Suit, and it's probably for the best, especially when it comes to the Frog Suit, since it's only useful for underwater levels. There are also items the player can earn to help them in the world map. The hammer allows you to break a rock, which can lead you to a shortcut or a blocked off minigame. The music box puts enemies on the world map to sleep, allowing Mario to run past them undisturbed. Lakitu's Cloud, one of my favorite items, allows you to skip past levels. I try to hold on to all the clouds and use them all in the final world. Then there's the P-Wing, which turns you into Raccoon Mario while also allowing you to infinitely fly, as long as you don't get hit. All of these items are extremely useful, and it makes it so worth it to go out of your way to grab items. The world map provides players a clear sense of progression, and also set the standard for what most future platformers would end up looking like. First, you begin in a grass world, where it feels safe. It's the tutorial world, so the challenge isn't very high. But then you progress to the sand world, the water world, a world where everything turned giants. Then there's a world in the sky, an ice world, and I really like how the ice world has these diagonal blue lines in the background to highlight that feeling of being in a cold, snowy environment. Then there is Pipeland, and finally Darkland, which honestly is just Mario version of hell. Most of these environmental themes would become staples in the Mario franchise, and were extremely influential for gaming as a whole. Literally, just look at any platformer that has been released since then, Mario or otherwise, and it's not hard to see where they get their inspiration from. It's not just the theming of levels that become much more varied, it's also the design of the levels themselves. You have your typical levels that look like this, right? But guess what? Super Mario Bros. 3 has a level where you go from right to left, and levels where you go from down here to up here. You know auto-scrollers? Yeah, this is the game that did it. To be honest, I don't enjoy most of the auto-scrolling levels in this game, but they do provide a unique challenge. There are some that are really good, such as this one where you have to quickly go up into the air while being chased by a black. This one where you're jumping on these guys, and also all the moving tanks in the final world are fun as hell. There is so much chaos, but it feels so satisfying once you finally beat them. There's a level where you hop on top of a platform, and it takes you up like a magical elevator. Thank you, magical elevator. I love you. There are some levels that are maze-like and have you scrambling around the level, looking for the right way to go to reach the end. There's this level where this bitch-ass fish tries to eat you. There's a level where you have to go up the right pipe super grass, and it feels like a homage to Mario Bros. You got one level where the sun is a deadly laser. I love that every level is unique in its own right, and that the developers weren't scared to experiment and come up with wacky ideas for levels and actually go through with them. And of course, we have to mention the music of this game. It is really good, and it has one of my favorite songs from the entire series. I really like this ending music. It's so cute and it fits perfectly with the vibe of this game. Super Mario Bros. 3 was a success in every way possible. It was a vast improvement over what came before it, and it has aged remarkably well. Soon enough though, Nintendo would release their new, more powerful console, and the game that launched with this console is the SNES. Just feels like if an NES went through a Pokemon style evolution. The graphics, sound, everything's just a step up. The controller has more buttons now, including 2 more face buttons and 2 shoulder buttons. Because of these additions, games could implement more inputs for their games, and all of these upgrades are evident in Super Mario World. Now to highlight the improved visuals of the SNES, the title card of Super Mario World is a colorful red, blue, yellow, and green. We get our first look at Mario's new design, and he is very adorable. As far as I can tell, this is the first time we see Mario in what is now his iconic red hats and blue overalls. We also meet Yoshi, this cute little green fellow we can ride on, and who will help us on our adventure. The Koopas also have this nice new animation where jumping on one launches them out of their shell. The levels and backgrounds have so much more added detail. The background of the first level has detailed hills and clouds that provide a great sense of scale and distance. The ghost houses have this really cool gradient of walls lit up by lanterns, where the tiles get darker and darker the further away they are from the source of light. Castle levels have a similar effect, where our view of stone bricks and arches are interrupted by shadows. There are stars glowing in the night sky. Another set of levels that have a cool illusion of depth are the forest levels, where trees are placed in the front of the level, momentarily blocking our view of Mario, with many leaves covering the background. Mario has additional movement options in this game. He still has a classic run and jump button, but he also has a new spin jump, which can be used to bounce off of certain enemies and to destroy blocks, which is mandatory in one case to progress the game. Mario can also hold shells and other items and throw them upwards now, which is something you will be expected to do in the final boss fight. The Super Leaf does not return for this game. Instead, Mario gets a cape which gives him the ability to slowly float downwards. Additionally, if Mario gets to a good running speed, he can take off into the air and kind of fly, depending on how well you can rock the D-pad back and forth to keep him in the air. A new feature for this game is the ability to hold onto a power-up. Just like in the first game, getting hit once reverts you all the way back to Small Mario, but now we at least get to hold an additional power-up, which will automatically fall downwards if we get hit. You can also manually grab the power-up by pressing the select button at any time. This game has so many more secrets and optional content than the previous games. There are keys you can find in levels which can be used to unlock a door to new shortcuts or secret levels, or even secret worlds. It rewards the player for thoroughly exploring levels and for their curiosity. However, I dislike when moments like these become mandatory to progress the game. On my first playthrough, I got to this level and beat it just like I had beaten every other level before it, because this is what I have learned from playing Mario for all of these years. Upon beating it though, there's nothing else I could do, so I would run around frustratedly looking for a way to progress. It got to a point where I became so annoyed that I just had to look it up. And it was then that I realized what you're meant to do is smash these bricks and then grab a key and open this keyhole. How was I meant to know this? I don't know, because up until this point I never needed to do anything like this. So I wish moments like these would only be used to reward players with optional content, rather than it being mandatory to beat the game. I also have some problems with some of the levels in Super Mario World. I mentioned that I don't really enjoy auto-scroller levels, and that's because I find them boring and they can become tedious really fast, especially if you die at the end of the level. Super Mario World has auto-scrollers that are so much worse than Super Mario Bros. 3. My main problem with them is that they're even more boring, because there is almost nothing to do in these levels. For example, there are 2 levels like this, where all you have to do is wait for the sand to move out of the way so you can move on. And then this level, which I know isn't technically an auto-scroller, but it might as well be because again, You're just waiting for the sand to move so you can move on. It's so slow and boring, and it's such a long section, like goodness, just let me go, you piece of shit. Overall, the level of difficulty in Super Mario World is a lot lower compared to the previous games, and it continued the trend of the games becoming easier and easier as time went on. Now, are you guys ready for a hot take? I feel that Super Mario World is a weaker game compared to Super Mario Bros. 3. I don't know if that's an unpopular opinion, but I do truly believe it. I believed it on my first playthrough, and I believe it now on my third or fourth playthrough, I can't remember. I like Super Mario Bros. 3 because of the world map and the minigames. I like how you can find items that allow you to interact with the world map in interesting ways. I like the levels because there is so much variety, and each level did something interesting or unique. Super Mario World is good and enjoyable, but I feel like it's missing a lot of the magic that was present in 3. I think the world map is less interesting, I think the bonus game is lame, and I feel like a lot of the levels are very samey, visually and design wise. Super Mario World rarely ever surprises the player with a cool level, and its strong suit are its secrets and hidden areas, both of which don't strongly appeal to me. I'll always prefer a fun, focused level over one that prioritizes exploration in any 2D platformer. One aspect Super Mario World does improve on is its bosses, as now we get to face many unique bosses, which require different methods to defeat. It's not to suggest that most boss fights in this game are good, but at least they do something interesting, unlike Super Mario Bros. 3. I do really love the music of this game. It is really good, all of it. I also really like the final level. You get to choose which challenge you want to face. You get to choose how you reach Bowser. Furthermore, this boss fight against Bowser is the best in the series up to this point, thanks to the new throwing mechanic which makes this fight the most unique one in the game. There's also this really cool effect where Bowser will go up close to the screen. I don't know why, but it's really cool. And then after beating Bowser, you get one of the best end credits in gaming. It's just very adorable and charming, and I really like how they show the cast of characters. And then you also have the Yoshi hatching from their eggs. Super Mario World just has an undeniable charm to it, thanks to its pretty visuals and great music. And this marks the end of the video. I know I have omitted some games from the first 10 years of Mario, such as Super Mario Land 1 and 2 and Super Mario Bros. 2. I chose to omit Super Mario Land because I don't think I'd have anything interesting to say about them. I also refuse to play Super Mario Bros. 2, Lost Levels, or USA version, because those don't feel like Mario to me, especially the US version. That's not even Mario, that's just whatever this is. Also, the art style kinda creeps me out and it makes me wanna cry, so yeah, I'm just not gonna play it. Super Mario Bros. 1, 3, and World all feel like there are evolutions, all related to one another, if that makes sense. Furthermore, because I picked an arbitrary 10-year mark, Super Mario World will mark the end of the decade for now. Next, I'll focus on the years from 1995 to 2005, and the games that released in that time period is Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine. And I'll do my Mario rankings up to this point. So here's how I rank the games I've played. At the number 3 spot is Super Mario Bros. Because it does feel antiquated compared to what came next, and also because it's full of NES bullshit in the endgame. I think it's a good game and fun to play, just not my favorite in the series. Number 2 is Super Mario World because although the visuals and music are all amazing, and although I really like the cutesy aesthetics of the game and the introduction of Yoshi, I do feel like it's missing a lot of what made Super Mario Bros. 3 special. And number 1, of course, is Super Mario Bros. 3 because of the world map, the fun and interesting levels, its charming visuals, great music, and overall I just really enjoy the package as a whole. Anyways, that's all for now. I'll see you when I see you, which is hopefully very, very soon.